morning, swans and falcons, and welcome to another maths lesson. Today we're going to be looking at ordering fractions, decimals and percentages. So ordering them from smallest to biggest usually. Okay, so our date today is the 21st of January, and if you'd like to take a moment to write down our learning intention, which is, can I order fractions, decimals and percentages? Okay, let's get started. Okay, so first thing I'd like you to do today is to have a go at matching these equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages. Okay, so each of these fractions is equivalent to one of these decimals and one of these percentages. Okay, pause the video now to have a go yourself and then we'll do it together. Okay, so in order to match my fraction of 3/20 with a decimal and a percentage, the first thing I need to do is make my denominator 100. Okay, so I need to multiply my denominator of 20 by 5 to get to 100. So I'm going to do the same to the top, which would then give me 15 hundredths. Okay, so that's my new fraction. So if I've got 15 hundredths, which decimal does that match with? Yep, that's right. So I know that 15 hundredths is equivalent to 0.15. Okay, so then what about a percentage? I also know that if my decimal is 0.15, that is equivalent to 15%. Okay, let's have a look at our 1/2 now. So what do I need to multiply 2 by to get to 100? That's right, I need to multiply it by 50. Okay, so then I need to do the same to the top, which gives me 50 100ths. Okay, so now have a look at my two remaining decimals that I have. I've got 0.03 and 0.5. Which one is 50 100ths equivalent to, do you think? Yeah, I know that 50 100ths is equivalent to 0.5, which is also equivalent to 50%. Okay, so that leaves me with my last fraction of 3 100ths, and I know that 3 100ths is equivalent to 0.03 and 3%. Well done. Okay, let's move on to our next slide. Okay, so now I would like you to order the following from smallest to biggest. So I've got a decimal here, I've got a percentage, and I've got a fraction. Okay, so when we've got a mixture of fractions, decimals and percentages and I need to order them, the first thing we need to do is to make them all the same. So we either need to make them all a decimal, or all of them a percentage, or all of them a fraction. Okay, so you can decide how you like to do this, but for this one, I'm going to change them all to decimals. Okay, so 0.97 is already a decimal, but what about 95%? What would that be as a decimal? Okay, so I know that 1 whole is equivalent to 100%, so 95% as a decimal I know is equivalent to 0.95. Okay, so I now have 0.97 and I've got 0.95, so I can see that my 0.95 is the smallest at the moment. Okay, but what about 3/4? Okay, how would I go about making that into a decimal, do we think? We can use our short division method for this. Okay, so if I've got 3/4, I know that 3/4, this actually means 3 divided by 4. Okay, so I'm going to lay this out in short division. So I've got my 3 inside my bus stop divided by 4. Okay, so let's work through that together. 4 goes into 3 0 times, we can't do that. Okay, so I'm going to put my 0 up there. Remember my decimal points. Okay, so then I'm going to add a 0 in here and carry my 3 over. How many times does 4 go into 30? Okay, so I know my 4 times table. I know that 4 multiplied by 7 is 28. Okay, so then I've got 2 left over, so I'm going to carry my 2 over with my 0 placeholder there. Okay, so how many times does 4 now go into 20? I know that 4 goes into 25 times. Okay, so that means that 3/4 is equivalent to 0.75. Okay, so now I've managed to make all of them into decimals. It's going to be much easier for me to be able to order them. Okay, so I'm just going to write up here. My 3/4 is equivalent to 0.75, so I've just written that up here. And then I know that 95% is equivalent to 0.95, so I'm just going to write that up there so I can see it a little bit easier. Okay, so now let's finish answering our question by ordering those decimals. So I can easily see that 0.75 is my smallest, so I'm going to put that over here. So 0.75 is the decimal, but 3/4 is its equivalent. Okay, then what's my next smallest? Is it 0.95 or 0.97? 0.95 comes next, doesn't it? So I'm going to put a little comma there and then write 0.95 comes next, which is equivalent to 95%. And so that leaves 0.97 as my largest. Okay, which is, that one started as a decimal, so I can leave that one as a decimal. Okay, so there we go. 3/4, 95% and 0.97 from smallest to biggest. This can also be visualised in our 100 grids here. So I've got 0.75 or 75% of my grid shaded here. So that's 75 squares out of my 100. In the middle one here I've got 95 of my 100 squares shaded, and in the end there I've got 97 out of the 100 squares shaded. Okay. So what about this one? Order the following from smallest to biggest. Can you have a go at this one yourself? Pause the video and have a try, and then we'll work through it together. Okay, so this time I think I'm going to convert all of these into percentages. So I'm going to take 0.62 first, because I know that's equivalent to 62%. Okay, then my 59% is already a percentage, so I don't need to change that one. Okay, so what about my 3/5? How would I convert that into a percentage? So the first thing that I would do is I would make my denominator 100, and I need to multiply 5 by 20 to get to 100. So I'll do the same to my numerator, going to multiply it by 20, which is 60. Okay, so 3/5 is equivalent to 60/100. Okay, and now I have my 60/100. I know that that's equivalent to 60%, because percentages are always out of 100, so 60/100 is equivalent to 60%. Okay, so now I've got them all as percentages, so I'm going to note them down. Okay, so I've got 60%, which is equivalent to 3/5. I've got my 59%, and I've got my 62%. Okay, so I'm going to rub the rest of this out so that I can now order them. Okay, so now I have them all as percentages. Again, it's much easier for me to order them. So which one is my smallest? Which one have you got as your smallest? So I can see 59% is my smallest, so I'm going to note that one down first. Then what comes next, 60% or 62%? So 60% comes next, okay, which is equivalent to 3/5. Okay, and then the last one, my largest one, is 62%, which is equivalent to 0.62. Okay, so I'm just going to fill in this gap here, 59%. Okay, so 59% is my smallest, then 3/5, and then 0.62 is my largest over there. Did you get the same? Hopefully. Okay. So next, I would like you to place these fractions, decimals and percentages on this number line. Okay, so here's the number line, but my number line, as you can see, is in decimals, and not all of my quantities up here, they're not all decimals, are they? I've got a fraction, I've got a percentage, and then I've got a decimal over at the end. So I'm going to have to convert these two into decimals, aren't I? So straight away, looking at the 90% there, I know that that's equivalent to 0.9. Okay, so that one's fine. And then 55 100ths, I know that that's equivalent to 55%, which means it's also equivalent to 0.55. Okay, so now they're going to be much easier for me to plot on my number line down here. So let's start with 0.55. So if I count along, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, I know that 0.55 is going to sit halfway between my 0.5 and my 0.6. Okay, so I'm going to do an arrow here and label it 0.55. Okay, so next I have 0.9. That one's a bit easier because 0.9 is already labelled on my number line, so that's down here. Okay, so I'm going to do another arrow here and label it 0.9. And then finally I've got 0.75 at the end. So again, 0.75, so I know that's going to come just after my 0.7 and halfway between 0.7 and 0.8. Okay, so I'm going to do my final arrow and label that one 0.75. Okay, so finally I'd like you to have a look at this. Find a percentage to make this statement correct. So first of all, we need to talk about these symbols here. What do they mean? Okay, so they mean less than. Okay, so 0.2 is less than whatever this blank number is here. Okay, and then whatever the blank number is here is less than 1/4. Okay, so I think lower down the school we might have said that the crocodile eats the bigger number. Okay, so that's always a good way to remember. So in this case our crocodile is facing towards our blank number, so we know that 0.2 is definitely smaller than whatever our number is in this box. Okay, we must also remember that we're looking for a percentage. Okay, so the first thing we can do is change our 0.2 and our 1/4 into percentages. So 0.2 is a percentage. We've had lots of practice now, so we should know that is 20%. 0.2 is equivalent to 20%. Okay, and then 1/4. Okay, what's that as? Okay, and 1/4, what's that as a percentage? That is 25%. So if my blank percentage in the middle here has to be greater than 20% but less than 25%, what could this number be? So if it needs to be greater than 20%, it could be 21%, it could be 22%, it could also be 23%, or 24%. Okay, any of those percentages would be correct here. So if I put 22% there, for example, so 0.2 is less than 22% and 22% is less than 1/4. Okay, so that's all from me today. So I'd like you now to go and find your ordering fractions, decimals and percentages worksheet on the blog. Okay, give it a go and let us know how you get on. See you later.